Hello, welcome to the Bigger True Show. I'm Scott McMahon, and I am doing kind of a spontaneous little live. This isn't going to take too long to explore the Data Republican website and what I think it means. And there's a lot of talk about the directors and the paid directors by America's Future being paid directly by USAID. Ariel just posted that. I think it's a huge mistake. It's not true. And uh, sort of partially true, sort of. And so I want to just get more specific about that because I think it's really important that we be truthful, and we need to be careful about um, what we say is true. We have to, from the very beginning, I've said, we have to be very careful about what we believe to make sure that it's true. And so this is definitely an example of that. So let's look at the website. I'm going to go ahead and blow this up here. And this is the Data Republican website. It's just datarepublican.com. And I definitely recommend that everybody go take a look at it. And this is the landing page right here. And so we're just going to look at with the information that we have about this, so we can try to figure out what this really means. Okay, so it says, welcome to datarepublican.com. Have you ever wondered where money goes? Billions of dollars are spent on government grants, charities, and other organizations every year. We're connecting the dots between government grants, charities, and drawing connections to expose where the money flows. We found some interesting connections, and we've made the data available for you to explore. Okay. So now on the left over here, there's this charity graph. It says track where the money goes, where the money flows, and there's principal officer search. So that's where we're going to go. If you go click here, you can search any individual organization. But what we're going to do here, we can look at an example. They put Bill Crystal by default here. And so you can look at this, the Institute for the Study of War, Inc. And this is, just an example. And so here is the Institute on the right here for the Study of War, Inc. And it shows $9 million in contributions. And it shows where some of these contributions have come from. And then this kind of flow of money that, if you look at on the far left here, this money is almost entirely coming from the government, National Endowment for Democracy, where it says $363 million in gross receipts. And we're going to look at, I'm not even sure what they mean by gross receipts, contributions, and grants given. So we're going to try to dive into this. Okay. So it says here at the top, and let's go to what everybody's talking about right now. Let's look, for example, at Tracy Beans. And so there are several different organizations, and I think, I'm not sure. We'll scroll through. We'll find America's Future. Let me look a different way. There's two, but for some reason it's not showing. It's almost like they took her out. So we'll look at the nonprofit right here, which is America's Future. Okay, so this is America's Future is the Flynn family 501c3. Now you can only find 501c3s in here. 501c3 is a nonprofit or a corporation that is not taxed. It's a tax exempt organization by the IRS. And so with that, there's certain things that, as would kind of make sense, that there needs to be some transparency, and they need to publicly disclose who their donors are. And their donors need to disclose to the IRS, of course, that they're giving that, and they're able to make those donations with before tax dollars. And so that, for somebody, especially somebody that has a lot of income and they're taxed at a high tax bracket, they can give more if they're giving before pre-tax dollars than if they have to give in after tax dollars. So 501c3. Now, there's another type of organization that the Flynn network uses a whole lot, and other dark money entities use, and organizations like the Arabella network and others use, which is called a 501c4. Now, 501c4 is also a nonprofit organization, but it is not tax exempt. And what they get for that is no transparency. And I believe that the 501c4 should be just disbanded, because the whole purpose of the 501c4 organization, the whole purpose of the 501c4 is to avoid transparency. and and they have a nearly 2 year, sometimes it's even over 2 year filing window before they even have to file. And so, so we don't have information for 501c4s like the America Project, which is a 501c4. They don't have to disclose who their donors are. So we don't know where their money went, and there are no 501c4s in the datarepublican.com website because that's not publicly available information. Now, Trump just said yesterday that he does intend to investigate NGOs, and I certainly hope that that is a very broad investigation, and that it includes, I would hope that it would include transparency for these 501c4s. Let the public get involved in this investigation, and let's see where the money comes from in these 501c4s. I think that would be phenomenal. I hope that happens. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are very nervous about that possibly happening. So, Russ, I'm happy that you caught me too. So thanks for saying hello. I appreciate it. It's good to see you. All right, so let's get into the America's Future and what the Data Republican website has to say about it. Let me make this bigger again. Now, if you click on the right here, it says see USAID grant flow. And again, this is on datarepublican.com. Definitely recommend taking a look at it, because if nothing else, it makes it easy to see the information from the company's tax filings to some extent. So you can see here. So here's America's Future. Now it says gross receipts, contributions, grants given. Let me go back for just a second. And you can see here, show principal officers. Now, this is one thing that this is some disinformation that's been put out there. So it shows Joseph T. Flynn, who is Mike Flynn's brother, Laura Logan, Mary O'Neill, Michael T. Flynn, that's the general, Paul Hoffaker, he's the director and I think treasurer. And then you've got Tracy Diaz, or Tracy Beans. And so that's why I wasn't finding her before, because her legal name is Tracy Diaz. So, and it shows, for example, Tracy Diaz taking in $60,000 and Laura Logan taking in $35,000. Now, where does this information come from? This is, and this is where Ariel said they're being paid by USAID, and that is just not true. They're not paid by USAID. They're paid by America's Future. This is what they're paid. And so let me show you. Give me just a second. Let me find. I've got the 990 here. I just got to switch. All right, here it is. Just make sure that we're. Yes. Okay. So this is from ProPublica's website. They have a good tool for searching nonprofits. And so you can find 990s for 501c3s, 501c4s. And as you see, if you look up a 501c4, you find that it is, it doesn't have that much information. It has the, here, this is just a summary of the information. If you want to see the actual 990 filing, it's a tax filing, and you can see here the same exact information we just saw in Data Republican, which is, it has Mary O'Neill being paid $148,000. We got Tracy Diaz, $60,000, Laura Logan, $35,000. Okay. So the thing is that, there's a lot of people going out and saying, oh, this is a bombshell, they're being paid by USAID. This is just information from the 990s. This has been out there for about a year, since it was filed a year ago. So this isn't new information at all. This is just what they're paid by America's Future for being on the board. And so, this there's no bombshell here. This is not there's nothing new that datarepublican.com is presenting to us here. So let me go back to I got to switch because the browser that I'm using doesn't work with the ProPublica website. So I'm switching back. Okay. So let's go back to America's Future. Whoops. Now, all right. So we got Tracy Diaz being on America's Future. Let's go now to this whole chart here. Now, chart looks really cool, right? Now, let's read what it says at the top, the disclosure. It says, note, funding is fungible, meaning USAID dollars do not directly flow into these NGOs in a literal sense. Instead, the money moves through multiple layers with various entities handling and redistributing it. Rather than focusing solely on individual grants or making definitive statements for how NGOs benefit from USAID, it's more important to recognize the broader pattern of funding distribution and influence and getting rid of the layers of inaccountability. Okay, so that's kind of a word salad. Really, what they're saying is so because USAID is not paying money directly to America's Future, and not all of the money that goes to nonprofits from the U.S. government goes through USAID either. And so this is, it's all just kind of a partial window. But what you see here is so this is America's Future, and you've got two lines coming into it, one of 8,550 and one of $100,000. Okay. And if you go backwards, so let's go take the 100,000 because that's, this is a total of $108,000, right? Which is about 5% or less of what America's Future actually had coming in terms of gross receipts. Now, when you line up this gross receipts, I'm not going to switch back because it takes me a minute to switch back to the 990, but these numbers don't actually match the numbers from the 990. So they're close. They're close. It's within like $100,000, but not exactly 100,000. They're close, but they don't exactly match with the 990. So I don't know what their source for this information is. And one thing that's a big red flag to me about this whole website is that it doesn't tell us where the data is coming from so that we can verify it for ourselves. That's a huge red flag to me. And that's part of the reason why I haven't shared this. I saw this as soon as it came out. There were all kinds of other people going out there with it, and saying, look, this is a bombshell. But I did not share it because I didn't see how I could verify it. There's no information, as you can see on this website, that allows us to verify this information. And when I look at, because I have the 990 up for America's Future, it doesn't exactly match. I can read it to you here from the 990. The total expenses was $174,000. The total income was $1,783,000. That was the total expenses. The total income was $1,365,000. So, it's close. I don't know what they mean. I don't know if that's like an average over time, but this is for the 990 for 2022. It was filed in September of 24. So it's going to be a while now before we see a new 990. So, because they're filed almost 2 years later. And so, for example, we know that there have been some changes on this. Ivan Raiklin is now on the board of the America's Future. He was put on the board as a reward for his viral video that he did with Zoe Chase, where he was talking about doing live swatting raids of his deep state target list with Ivan Raiklin's mother of all Twitter files. So, we know that Ivan Raiklin is on the board of the America's Future, of America's Future, and he's most likely getting paid. but we don't know how much, and we don't, we don't have that filing to show that. So there's been some changes on that board, and there may be other changes as well. But this is as of 2 years ago now, that the information that we're looking at here. So, and this is the most recent 990, and unless they're getting information from another source, they should tell us what that source is so that we can verify it. That, yeah, this is actually accurate and legit, but they're not. Okay. So, they have, and they say, again, 1.3 million. So, in contributions, which I think that's what they mean by contributions, is how much is contributed to the organization. I think, but there's not a key that tells us that, and I look at, there's not much information here. And, there's a donate thing, follow on X. I spent about a half hour scrolling through the X, see if I could find an explanation or a key or something of what each of these things mean. It doesn't say. So, we're kind of left to just figure it out, which I don't like. And, if you know of a key here that I can't find, I've looked all over the website, please let me know. I'd be happy to, if I'm missing something, please let me know. Okay. So, this question here, Carol Ann says, what are they being paid for? Well, most boards, many boards, at least boards of companies or nonprofit organizations that have a fair amount of money going through them, pay their directors for going to the meetings, being involved in, they sometimes give them certain tasks or responsibilities. And so it's often a paid position to be on the board of directors. And so that's what they're being paid for. So that's a good question. Thank you. All right. So again, if you know of is like a key or more of an explanation of where this information comes from, or what what the source of it is so that we can verify it, that would be super helpful. But I'm guessing that it comes from the 990s, except it's not exactly, so that the information about what the directors are paid, that definitely comes from the 990s because that lines up. And I've looked at some other 990s to confirm that. But these contributions, I don't know, whatever it is, I don't know what their source is. We'll just keep going. Okay. So if we go back in time, let's start at the left all the way over here. So we've got this consortium for elections and something. It says here, gross receipts of $165,000. It says 0 in contributions. That must mean that nobody gives them any money. Grants given, I assume that's from the government, because it says taxpayer funds is the total amount. So if the way I'm reading this is, gross receipts is how much is their total expenses. So that's how much they paid out. And the grants given was 165 million. So they gave out all of what they received. That's the way I'm reading this. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what makes sense to me. And I've been on the boards of for-profit, nonprofit, and I'm on I'm now on a county commission board. So I do read financial documents, but they're all different. So, but this is how I'm reading it. So we got 165 million, and then it says there's an arrow here. It says 64 million that goes to this National Democratic Institute for something. And you can't click on this to get the whole name. You can't click on it. It would be cool if you could to get more information, but you can't. But you could search it. You can write down the EIN and then you can search it. Whatever. I'm not complaining. I think that this is a valuable tool but you got to understand what it actually does and what it doesn't say. And so let's try to figure this out together. I think this is kind of helpful because it helps us all to look critically at what we're being told. Okay. So again, we're being told that all of the money that America's Future has received is from USAID, or even that they've received money from USAID. And this doesn't say that. I don't see where this says that at all, actually. Okay. So it got 65 million go to this organization, and this organization shows 172 million in gross receipts, 3 million in contributions, 8 million in grants given. And then it says taxpayer funds 167 million. So again, I don't know where they're getting their information. I wish they would just tell us or point to, this is where we're getting our information. This is what the taxpayer funds is. This is how we know it. and you can go here and you can verify this for yourselves, but they're not doing that. And so this is because of that, I think that this is probably going to do more harm than it will do good, because it's going to result in people discrediting themselves and even this organization being discredited, whatever the organization is. And so, okay, so this organization, then the National Democratic Institute, gave, it says 312,000 to this organization, Global Communities, which gave 1.3 million to Save the Children Federation, and 800,000 to World Vision, and then Save the Children gave 88,000 to Hillsborough County School Readiness, and then Hillsborough County School Readiness, which also, it looks like it's one of these kind of pass through things, because it says 236 million in taxpayer funds and almost the same amount in gross receipts. So everything, all the taxpayer funds that go into it also goes out of it. That's what it looks like. Again, I can't verify it. And then, but that organization then gives 343,000 to Tampa JCC Federation Inc., and which also received about 600,000 in taxpayer funds. In addition to this 343,000 from that, this other organization. And then that gave money, 200,000 to the Jewish Federations of North America. If you're confused, it's okay. I'm confused too. So, and this Jewish Federations of North America also received money from this other organization that also received money from the Tide Center. And the Tide Center is this is the Tide Center. That is a George Soros organization. That's part of the Open Societies Foundation. The Tide Center is a major Soros organization. So, so this Soros organization gives money to 190,000 and 60,000. I don't know why there's both. Oh no, it looks like 190,000 to the Community Foundation of Greater Something, which gave $147,000. So again, so even in this example, Tides, George Soros gives 190,000 to this Community Foundation of Greater Something. Okay, this foundation received $25,000 in contributions, which I believe that's actual donations. And it could include other grants from other nonprofits, but and then there's grants, but it says no taxpayer funds. Okay, so that then they give $147,000 to the Jewish Federations of North America. That doesn't mean that it's 147,000 of the 190,000 that they received. This doesn't mean that the Tides Foundation, when they gave this, they said, okay, we want you to give $147,000 of this to the Jewish Federations of North America. It doesn't even mean that the Tides Foundation or the Tides Center even knew that this money was going to the Jewish Federations of North America, or that even in this case where this is close, this is just one removed, right? That the Jewish Federations of North America, did they even know that they were getting $147,000 that came from the Tide Center and from George Soros? Do they even know that? I highly doubt it. Just knowing how this kind of stuff works, I highly doubt it. You only know who's paying you. You don't know where they got their money from. And this is going down like all of these different, I mean, this is kind of crazy. This is going through how many layers? You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different layers before it finally gets to America's Future, who gets a total of $108,000 from two different organizations, neither of which receives any taxpayer funds according to this model. Both of these say zero taxpayer funds. So, neither of them are receiving any money, certainly from USAID. And we don't know that this taxpayer funds, how much of that is from USAID or from other departments within the government. I think that this is I would not be surprised, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would not be surprised if all of this whole data Republican thing is something of a psyop just to confuse us and to discredit Trump and to discredit all of us. Like, to me, it's just not making sense because we don't know where this is coming from. So to say that America's Future is getting money from USAID because they're on this website, like, I'm not following. I just don't see it. I don't see the evidence of that. I would love for it to be true, right? I would love for this to be the smoking gun that takes down Flynn. And I've been working to expose him for a long time. But I don't think we need this. I've been sharing the evidence now for well over a year of the various operations that Flynn is involved in, and I'm going to do much more of that. And so, I'm just not seeing now what I do see. That's that what is strange here and indicting to a certain extent. Now, I mean criminally, but that there's some level of guilt here is that if you or I form a 501c3, we don't have access to this kind of money. Like, we can't go to Bradley Impact Fund Inc. and get $100,000, and or we can't be Bradley Income Fund Inc. and get 1.5 million from the Schwab Charitable Fund, or and it goes on, right? Or Fidelity Investments, like they got money from a Fidelity Investments charitable give fund. Is that just a grant program that they just publicly announced that we're doing this grant and this is how you could apply and any 501c3 could apply? I don't know. There's just the thing about this, and again, what the reason why I'm doing this live is to, oh my gosh. All right. I don't know if I just saw that my camera was turned off. I don't know if the sound was also turned off. If you are there and I've been talking and you can't hear me, I apologize. Hopefully it was just my camera that got turned off. But the bottom line here is that I just don't see the smoking gun. I do see that they're part of a club. They're getting money that, $108,000 in 1 year of free money from organizations that get money from organizations is a big deal. And I do think that there's something to this web of money that comes through, especially when you talk about these red ones here where it says high taxpayer funds alert. When you start talking about these organizations or organizations that are directly given money from these organizations, I'd say there's a lot more guilt there. But if you're talking about an organization that is receiving money from another organization that has not, at least on this, received taxpayer funds, I don't know. Maybe there's more there that I don't know about. Maybe there's, I'd like to see something that we can actually verify. So at worst, according to this, $108,000 came from organizations. I think this is the most damning thing that could be said about America's Future. $108,000 came from organizations. They got money from organizations. They got a great deal of money, like this board of trustees of the land. Okay, this is big money, $1.5 billion in taxpayer funds. But they only sent $60,000 to Fidelity Investments Charitable Fund. And, I don't know if you're closer to this, to these red ones, that would be a lot more damning. But so they got money. America's Future got money that at one point came from the government. But I mean, when you're talking about 7 degrees of separation, is that really valuable? Or 10 degrees in some cases? You look at the Tide Center. Okay, how far away is the Tide Center? They gave money. Tide Center gave money to somebody. They 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 gave money to America's Future. Is that really that damning? Maybe it is. I mean, maybe there's some level of direction. Maybe, and that's something that is beyond my pay grade. That's something that, because it involves information that we just don't have access to. Law enforcement could get access to it potentially, but the public and a journalist, unless it's given to me as a by a whistleblower or something like that. There's not that much here that I can jump on. So I haven't seen anybody who's really serious as far as a journalist talking about this website, and I think there's a real good reason for that. There's a lot of people that are less serious that are jumping all over this and saying that this is a nuclear bomb and this is a smoking gun and the whole Flynn's are going down, and they got USAID money. I think that is really harmful. So, all right. Gus Quixote, you're good, and thanks for doing this and being honest about it, Scott. You're welcome, Gus. And yeah, I do think this is important. um, Humble says, "Saw and heard you. Thank you." And so, yeah, I hope this is helpful. And I think we've got enough of a case against Flynn. He has been working against Trump and against MAGA in so many different ways. There are so many different operations, and that it can be difficult to understand. And so I understand why you see something that might be just an absolute smoking gun that anybody can comprehend is just great. So let's let's jump on that, but let's be careful before we jump onto something. Let's just give it a minute and look at where this really comes from. So Sam Wallace says he was writing that Reawaken tour for the major stint. And yeah, there is so much chaos. Like Humble said, there's so much chaos bombarding us. And there's some big, I think that part of what this is distracting us from is there's some really, really um uh damning stuff that is coming out. And we just saw Mark Zaid, I've talked about Mark Zaid a whole lot. He just got stripped of his security clearance. This is a big deal. And this just happened. This was just announced today. And so I'm going to share that in just a minute. I just saw that. Huge deal that Mark Zaid is no longer going to have his security clearance. I've been talking about Mark Zaid for months because I do believe, there's actually very close connection there. It's not like what we're looking at right here. Somebody to somebody to somebody. It is Mark Zaid is very close with Mike and Barbara Ledeen. They've gone to synagogue together for decades. They're very close. And Mike Ledeen he's extremely close with Mike Flynn, like besties. They're very close. They have been for a very long time. So he's one of Flynn's mentors. I believe he's been one of Flynn's handlers, extremely close. So that's one point. Another is Ezra Cohen Watnick. Flynn put Ezra, when he was during his 23 days that he was national security advisor for Trump the first time around, he put Ezra Cohen Watnick into a position. I don't remember what his title was. And he is very close with Zaid. His attorney is Mark Zaid even to this day. And Mark Zaid was the impeachment whistleblower in the Ukraine call impeachment. And he actually started a nonprofit or a fund. I looked for Mark Zaid in the system. I couldn't find him. But he started a fund for an impeachment whistleblower before that phone call ever even happened, before the Ukraine phone call ever happened. So, it's fantastic. It's wonderful news that he's lost his security clearance, and he just posted on X, "Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to get it again in 4 years, and you guys are all going to be irrelevant." Talking to the Trump administration. So that's good news. More good news. Matt Schellenberger put out a piece yesterday that I'm going to talk about shortly. Huge deal. I'm going to talk about that on Monday's show. And there's a lot going on. There's fog of war, and I think it's just important that we don't just jump into something without first examining, okay, how can I verify this? Is this something that I can verify? And maybe they'll come out and they'll verify this, and they'll show why these numbers are different from what's on the 990s. Maybe they'll show more of what these connections mean, or we can click on it and get more information. They'll improve it. I understand developing a new website, it looks like it might be a good tool. It is useful. It makes it easier to find organizations based on people. I think that people search is really cool. So there's good things about this. And I think it's worth researching, especially for organizations that are right next to and receiving money directly from these red organizations that are on this this list. I think that, that's where, I think it's worth looking into this organization right here that's receiving money from the Tide Center, for example. And all of these, like what University of Pittsburgh, why are they giving money to Cedar Sinai Medical Center? Who's then, why? Like, there's a lot there. This New America Foundation is definitely one that's worth looking into. I looked at that a little bit. And so there's good stuff here. And I think it's getting more eyeballs on these nonprofits. I did see that like 40% of all of the funds that are received by 501c3s comes from the government in some way. So that's a big deal. And, that's all stuff that needs to be investigated. I think it's fantastic that Trump has called for that. And there is a lot of really good stuff that's happening. So let's focus on what we can prove. Let's focus on what we really know, and let's keep going forward. But I think that we need to be very, very careful about spreading information that we can't verify. So, so that is that. I hope this helps. I hope you have a great rest of your evening and a good Sunday. And I'll see you on Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern. I will be doing we'll be going into part 3 on the plots against the president. And I've got a lot of good stuff to share. So we'll talk to you then.